I'm Stephen Bright. This is my colleague Diani Gedera, and this is a work in progress presentation, so this is kind of like a first look at something that's still ongoing. We're from the University of Waikato. Waikato in Maori means flowing water, wai for water, kato for flowing, and it's the longest river in New Zealand that flows through the wonderful town of Hamilton, also known as the Tron. And this is our typical Hamilton day here at the lake by the university campus. Yeah, right. So we're going to do a little bit of an overview, talk a little bit initially about the pedagogical underpinnings of the particular project, because we tried to make that explicit. Diani will talk more about the case study itself. I'll talk a little bit about a usability survey that we've tried out with this particular group and do some comparisons between different ePortfolio packages in terms of usability and this particular group. So, for those of you who were at a presentation I did last year about social constructivism and ePortfolios, this will be vaguely familiar. But I thought it was important just to kind of touch base with the idea that ePortfolios are usually congruent with a particular pedagogy, and that often what happens in our place is that people start from either the learning activity or the assessment task. They don't start with their pedagogy, and whether their pedagogy of their particular approach to learning activities and assessment is congruent with what they're trying to do in the ePortfolio. In gardening terms, you can dig a hole in a garden with a rake, but it will take you quite a while. So the question is, are you trying to use a rake or are you trying to use a shovel? So less text does not apply to this slide. But one of the things that you can do with slides that are rather busy with text is just be quiet for a minute and let people read it. So that's what I'm going to let you do now. Just do a quick skim read of that. So for many of you, that sort of framework will be quite familiar. It's been around education for quite a long time. Those of you that have done any research in the area of constructivism will know there are different flavours of constructivism. But this kind of general overview is very familiar to most educators. And so what I did then in the paper that I did last year was I made some links between the kinds of themes that social constructivism has in the left-hand column, and then the kind of things you can do in Mahara in the right-hand column that support that way of working in an educational environment. And I was interested as I worked through this to find that actually it pretty much matched up. Now, some of my colleagues pointed out that Mahara doesn't make you work in this way, it simply makes it possible. So the software is not, in that sense, it doesn't have a compulsory aspect to it, but it does make it possible. And what we're going to do now is a little bit of what's commonly called co-construction. So that's one of the principles, this one here. Knowledge needs to be subject to social discussion, validation, and application in real-world context. I just want you to have a think for a moment, maybe have a talk to someone if you're sitting close by somebody. Can you think of any features of Mahara that would support that item? What are some features of Mahara that might support that particular constructivist theme? We won't ask you to come up to the front. Has anybody got any ideas that spring to mind off the top of your head?
The fact that you can share.
Yep, that you can share things. So that's partly the social discussion bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can not only share it with your teacher, you can share it with a peer, you can share it with somebody completely outside the system altogether via a secret URL. Yeah.
And you've got the group set up?
Yep, so you've got groups which enable you to talk around pages, either individual pages or group pages.
For comment management.
Right.
You can validate through third parties, you can reflect, you can on your application, you can add multimedia.
Right.
Show those real.
Sure. So you get the idea. This wasn't sort of rocket science that I did really. I think any of us could have done it. I was just the one who sort of bothered to do it and then cobble it together into a paper of some sort. So yeah, so I guess what the point we're making is that there's a starting point here which is not just what is my assessment or what is my learning activity, and then how am I going to implement that in Mahara. There's a starting point one step back from that, which is what is my pedagogical and teaching philosophy, what are the things I really believe in as a teacher, and then how can those be implemented, what are the best things that I can do in Mahara. And if it's a 3,000 word essay, that may not be a Mahara item. That may be better done somehow in another tool, in another place. Right, your turn.
Thank you. So this work in progress project focuses on the use of ePortfolios in an English for academic purposes context in facilitating integrated learning, collaboration and reflection. So here we refer to integrated learning as these students are, this is a generic paper, third year generic paper, but the students come from different subject domains, like some of them come from screen and media, languages, marketing, anthropology. So when they come to this course, they actually make links between their major subject and this paper. So this subject is linked to understanding of meaning in academic listening and reading text, and also there's a writing component, so all the 4 skills basically. As I said, this is a third year generic paper. So students use Moodle as well, so they get all the information about this course on Moodle. Right now, this is like 10 students have enrolled in this course, and all of them are international students. So in this context, students are using Mahara as a learning portfolio, so they use it for assessments. But since they're in their third year, some of them, they have already expressed their interest, saying that, yeah, this is great, we are going to use it as a showcase portfolio. So the design, of course, it's influenced by social constructivism. As I said, we love theory, not really, but we try to link theory with practice. I think that's our interest. So when we looked at the assessment in this paper, early we realized that all the assignments were individual. There were no opportunities for students to work together or give peer feedback and so on. So we redesigned assignments to facilitate integrated learning, collaboration, peer feedback and reflection. Like integrated learning here actually refers to, as I said, making links between this paper and other major subjects. For example, in this paper, students are working on a mini literature review. So let's say a student is coming from marketing. They might bring an article on digital marketing and then look at hedging and reporting verbs in that particular article, for example. So we deliberately wanted to, when we redesigned the assignments, we deliberately wanted to incorporate those collaborative opportunities for students. That ties neatly with also the idea of ZPD, Zone of Proximal Development, who's are familiar with that concept. So Vygotsky introduced the idea of ZPD, that is, humans learn by interacting with each other. He described ZPD as the distance between what we can learn alone and what we can learn with the help of others, like capable peers, including facilitators and mentors. So students in this context, they work in collaboration and in this social environment. So they use different features, like they create different pages for different assignments, and they make collections, they use multimedia, a journal function for reflections, They also share pages with each other for collaboration, and they use comment feature. Now this is a typical example, what we designed, a redesigned assignment. So this is called presentation, evaluation and feedback. So there are 4 parts to it. So what happens here is the first part is complete a language-focused practical analysis. As I said, the example, digital media, they might look at a language component in this article. So once they do this analysis, they upload it on their ePortfolio. So that's the first part. And then students have to prepare an oral presentation using the same article but selecting one aspect of that article. So previously, students used to present this to the whole class. The teacher is sitting there and assessing on the spot. But all the international students, being non-native speakers of English, we realized that this is a very stressful task for them. So we decided this semester they are going to present to a smaller group, let's say 2 or 3 students, and then while they are presenting, they are going to make a screencast of their presentation, so they can use their slides and the webcam. They use Screenomatic. Have you heard of Screenomatic? Very easy to use tool. So they record themselves and then they upload their screencast on their ePortfolio. So that's the second part. So the third part is then they share this page with a person who came to that presentation. So the assessor is not sitting in the small groups actually. So they share this page with another peer for a week, and then that peer gives feedback to the student on their presentation. So they have a choice to give either oral feedback or text feedback. Once it's completed, the last part is the student is working on sort of a reflection on what they learned in this assignment, how did the collaborations go. Basically, they are learning in this assignment. So that's so you can see how we have tried to incorporate all the integrated learning, reflection, collaboration, and so on. Now, in terms of the process and implementation, this is the first time they are using an ePortfolio in this EAP context, both the students and the lecturer. So we conducted workshops for the lecturer and also the students, so showed them how to create a page and how to upload things. And also I created a sample ePortfolio, so this is a screenshot of that. Now this is the first page. In case if they want to use it as a showcase portfolio, we thought it would be useful for them to have a look at how their portfolio might look like. And hereafter all the other pages are actually their assignment pages. And we also give ongoing support. So they have once a week they have a lab session. So once in 2 weeks I check with them and then we support them if they need extra support. So students are pretty happy with that. Now, evaluation and reflections are 2 critical things in any project. So we wanted to know what students think about this, their use of ePortfolios in this context. So we sort of designed a project around it. We have got ethical accrual. So we are going to collect data using 3 main methods. We are going to send them an online survey towards the end of the semester. And we also want to have semi-structured interviews with them. And we have got permission to access their ePortfolios, so we want to see what sort of features they have used and how they have used. And mainly we wanted to find out their experiences of using ePortfolios, since this is the first time we are using ePortfolio in this context. Apart from these 3 main methods, we also wanted to know the usability of the tool, Mahara, and Stephen is going to talk about that. We have actually conducted the survey.
Okay. So a couple of years ago I stumbled across a survey tool called SUS, System Usability Survey, which was done back in the 1980s by the DEC Corporation. And it was a very easy thing to use. There's basically 10 questions in it. It's been benchmarked and ratified for use with a whole heap of different systems. And it was originally designed, believe it or not, for those of you who remember those days, for evaluating green screen monitors that were attached to the DEC mainframes. That's what the original purpose was. But it is quick, it's easy to use, it's very reliable in terms of the scores that it gives. And another good thing about it is that it gives reliable scores with a very small sample. So 10 students in normal sort of survey terms would be too small a sample to be significant, but with this DEC survey you can have a sample as small as 6 or 7 students and you'll actually get a reliable result. So I'm not sure if you can see very easily the graph here, but I've done this survey before and I've also asked colleagues of mine in different institutions to do this. So 3 of these surveys have been done with different versions of Mahara, and a couple have been done with other tools that have been used as ePortfolios. So the score is out of 100, but actually it's not a percentage. So you just got to be a little bit careful about that. What this means is that Mahara 1.7 and 1.8 were both groups that we surveyed within University of Waikato, and it was pretty much a similar kind of score. It was in the middle. It was what they call the OK band. It wasn't horrible, it wasn't great. So then I had a friend at Auckland University who was using a Canadian product called Chalk and Wire, and interestingly enough, it scored in exactly the same band. So the ePortfolio uses, the tools seem to get a similar ease of use, no matter what tool it is. Google Sites, that another group in Waikato were using, also scored in exactly the same band. But the interesting thing about this dark green one at the end is, this is the group that we're working with at the moment. Their view of the ease of use, so the higher the score, the easier they think the product is to use, is a lot higher. And we haven't yet kind of tried to unpack that, but from what Diani said, you can guess that part of the contributor to that is the kind of amount of hand-holding that's going on. Yes. They're getting a lot of support, both individually and as a group, so they kind of report it as being a lot easier to use. But having said that, this is also a later version of Mahara, 15.10, so it could well be that there are improvements in the user interface which also contribute to that improved score.
And questions and comments?
So what was the feedback of the students? How about if they like working with ePortfolios? Did they think it would help them with the studies? Or?
So far, they think that it's easy to use. They have been using ePortfolios for about 4 weeks now. About 4 weeks. They like the tool and they have got the hang of it, so they don't have any difficulties at the moment. But as I said, we check like every 2 weeks what sort of support they need. It's not just ePortfolio, and then we ask when they have to do, let's say, a screencast. I say, all right, I'm coming to class now. We'll learn how to do the screencast and then upload it, or recording their oral feedback. So those kinds of support as well. So I think because of that, they don't find it difficult at the moment. So far, so good.
And is your question also about whether they think that there are educational learning advantages for themselves? Yeah. So we don't know that yet, because obviously it's a work in progress. Would you have any impressions so far about what they think of this as a kind of a way of learning things and doing things?
Especially with the integrated learning part, because we are trying to see how they make connections between other papers, this paper and other papers. I think the first part, probably 1 or 2, they're doing their first assignments now, so we can see after that perhaps, because it's too early to say.
So when you introduced the Mahara ePortfolio, did you have a face-to-face class with them to show them how to use it?
Yes.
Did you have follow-up manuals and things like that?
Yes, we have this Mahara mini manual, so that's one thing. So we sent it to them,
Yes.
and we had one face-to-face session.
Yes.
Actually, we had two. We normally have one session with the students. We were kind of careful in this instance because we thought, being non-native speakers, they might need a little bit more support.
Yes.
So we want to take it very slow.
Yes.
Yeah, step by step, and I think it's working.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, one of the interesting things about this, the actual kind of process is not particular revolutionary, but this is a group of, this is a cohort that we really haven't tried to use ePortfolios with before,
Yeah.
in terms of all of them being not native speakers of English. So for that particular group, we're kind of, we're sort of, it's sort of a bit like baby steps for them and baby steps for us.
We've done something similar at GoSafe, where pathway students whose language is quite challenged, they've been using ePortfolios to improve their writing skills, which is really good.
Yeah, that's right. We have been looking at the literature. I mean, I had a slide on literature. I thought that's boring, so I deleted it. So when we looked at the literature, we found out that ePortfolios have been used with these kinds of groups, but not for integrated learning. They have used mainly for, let's say, ePortfolios for writing skills.
Yes.
So yeah.
Which is great.
We'll find out more at the end of the semester, I guess.
Yeah. So if you're interested in finding out and seeing the kind of final write-up for this research project, then if you leave a card or just come and talk to Diani and I, and we'll make sure we have a list, and we'll just biff you out a bit.ly URL so you can go and look at the final write-up for the results.
Right, yeah.
That'd be fantastic. Fantastic project.
Any other comments or your experiences of using ePortfolios in a similar kind of context?
What time did you put into creating the workshop?
You mean the duration or the...
The design and the delivery of it?
For the workshop, we had 1 hour workshop, 2 workshops, 1 hour each, and creating the sample ePortfolio, probably I must have spent like 2 or 3 hours just to putting things together.
The workshop design itself was basically a form of something that we've been doing for a while. So it's kind of a bit one size fits all, but we've been rolling that out to different groups for a couple of years. So that, in fact, between us, this start of this year, we've done I think 36 of those.
Yeah.
So you just press play, dial up, first joke,
so it's like,
dial up, video clip, dial up.
One question about, you had the sample there with the profile, and then you had 7 pages to the collection, and each of those pages were the assignments,
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So do you do a template and get them to copy the template, or do you actually get them to create it with you?
So I shared this with them as a collection, so they, if they wanted to, they could copy and simply, replace the items. Or I told them, if you're free, basically you're free to design your own portfolio. The idea is that it should be student-centered and students should have the control. So I gave them the choice. Either way, it doesn't matter. If you find it difficult to, do it at the beginning, copy it, but make your own.
What facilities are doing their own in terms of copying the template? What facilities would you say are doing their own?
I would say about 4 or 5 students copied it. Others, they're just looking at it and then they are creating their own portfolio.
So about a 50-50 split.
50-50, I would say. Yeah. But I noticed that they are now changing the layout, so they're getting, as they're getting comfortable with it, they change more.
That's good.
5 minutes? They might be.
Is there a way that the students can give you feedback as they're going through, rather than it sounds like you're sort of talking to them and looking at their stuff? But is there a way that you can get them to record something? You know what I mean? Like put their comments on how it's all going.
Yes, actually, yes, we wanted to do that. Now, at the beginning when we were doing the ethics application, it's a long one, so we wanted to put it as an action research. But then we realized that Anthea, who is teaching the class, she's involved too, so she can't have access to the ePortfolios, and she doesn't know who participates in the study since she's assessing their ePortfolio. So it was a little complicated. So now we decided we are going to do actually everything at the end, but we get informal feedback from them whenever we have lab sessions. So we ask them, what do you think? Is it difficult? A usability survey was one part of it, so we thought, yeah, let's do that and get some information. So it's all informal at the moment. And the lecturer is also recording her thoughts, like how she finds it and what's her experience going through this process.
Yeah, but you're right, there could have been a metacognitive journal
that's right.
that students kept of, and that would have been part of the mix.
Yeah. We're thinking about using a closed Facebook group.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah,
it's a good idea.
There's another project that I'm involved in. Actually, we are doing that way. We get students to write how they feel now, and it's like an action research, so it's we get feedback time to time, like every 3 weeks. Yeah. Any other comments? That's it, I guess.
Keep talking if you want.
Keep talking. All right. There was an old man from Tralee. Right, we're wrap it up.
I was just going to say, from an IT point of view, it's good to see that the usability has improved as we did try to make a bunch of usability improvements. So
Sure.
It's actually reflected through that actually it has improved.
Sure. Yeah. And the other thing I was interested in from those usability studies was I haven't yet found someone in the kind of, I've asked a couple of people who are PebblePad users in Australia to do this survey with a group who are new users, because it is a survey that's designed for new users. That's why you don't do it for a year and then give them the survey. The idea is about halfway through the program they get, when it's still fresh, that's when they get to do it. But it is, I would recommend the SUS, if you just do a Google search on System Usability Survey, it'll pop up, and it's really well benchmarked, and it's got good reliability. It's quick and easy to do. On paper the students can do it in less than 10 minutes, and the scoring takes a little bit longer, but that's only because you're mathematically challenged like me.
Okay, thank you very much. Some interesting conversation.
Thank you.